All right, you ready?
Okay, let's start.
Okay. Let people in.
What do we have? Wonderful.
Hello, everybody. Welcome tonight to the webinar. We are going to probably mute everybody while we do the presentation and while we run through everything. And then we're going to open it up for question and answers at the end. And if you're thinking of something, you can just type it in the chat and we will get to it from then, okay? So I'm just going to go ahead and, letting everybody in, just coming in. We'll give it till about like 8:05 before we, 8:03, something like that before we start. So.
And we will explain this once or twice as more and more people come in. But you see two Lara Rockefellers on your screen. That is because somehow I ended up signing in on Lara's Zoom account. And and so we're
rolling with it.
We're two Laras here.
That's right. Two Laras don't make it right.
That's right.
Just teasing.
Okay, so we're also doing this on Facebook Live, and there is a link on the Facebook Live that you can join directly into the webinar if you want to click on that. If for those of you that might be watching on the Facebook Live, we're doing a webinar on home equity investing, which will take about an hour to go through, maybe 45 minutes if we're quick. We're waiting till about 5 after 8 to start. And actually see there are 4 people on Facebook Live at this point in time, which is great.
Perfect.
And we're basically showing people that they're sleeping on a mattress full of cash. And in most cases, they do not see that they have the ability to purchase an investment property. And over the process of this seminar, we're going to basically show them that it is possible. You do not need to be filthy rich to make it happen. You need to have a reasonable amount of risk tolerance, but it has worked for many and it will work for many in the future. So this is kind of what we're looking at doing. And as I say, on the Facebook Live link, there is a link, or it should be there, where you can actually copy and paste and join us on the webinar on Zoom. So please. And
then you'll be able to see all the slide, like the presentation. So
that's right. If you can't see the presentation, it will be recorded. And we will be putting it onto a YouTube series. So you will be able to watch it there, or please call Lara or myself, and we will make sure that that you get all the information that you need.
Absolutely.
So we see a few more people coming in on both, which is great.
Yep. So we're not even at 8 yet. We're at 7:59. You guys are the early birds. Nothing wrong with that.
So we will be starting in about 5 minutes to go through the presentation.
Perfect.
What we noticed in people coming in as they were registering for the program is that some of them already have investment properties. Oops, I'm going to have to mute my phone. Let me just do this.
Someone's calling you for the link.
Right, exactly. Yeah, we noticed that some people do not have investment. We sent out a survey, and found that some people do not have investment properties yet. Some people do. So we may be able to give some answers as to how to maybe more efficiently manage their properties as they move through the seminar. Any of those things in terms of refinancing would be questions that would go to Lara on the financing side. In terms of searching property, trying to understand how the market, this crazy market is going right now, is something that would probably be directed maybe more to myself. You know, how to find a house, how to find a good house. And then it would be up to Lara to find a way to make sure that you can finance it.
That's right. And then we both will work with you about going over logistics and tenant screening and that kind of stuff. So
yeah. Plus we'll do some case studies of people that have been able to do it successfully. I may talk anonymously of some of the people about some of the situations that people that I've helped with over the years be able to buy properties. And I know my wife and I have certainly bought properties over the years, and we were talking about it today, and probably the best thing we could have done was to have never sold any properties that we had bought along the way. That our financial situation would be much stronger if we had done that along the way. So those kind of things that we will be talking about. And,
absolutely.
yeah.
People are still coming in, so we're going to give them a couple more minutes.
Hello, Naresh.
Hi, how are you, Laura?
Good, how are you?
Laura, I know Laura. Laura's name is Laura.
Yes. Excited to have everybody.
I'm going to have to take one call here just for a second.
You go ahead.
Email response.
We're at 8:02. We're going to give you one more minute, and then we're going to start. So like I was just saying before, we're going to ask everybody to be muted while we do the, just go over all of our slides and everything. And if you have any questions, just put them in the chat, and we are going to try and address all the questions at the end. You'll also find a way to get a hold of us in the chat too, through our booking link. And yeah, so sometimes it's better just to have like a one-on-one conversation about your particular situation. But yeah, definitely put the questions in the chat, and we'll go from there. And we'll just give her one more minute. Oh, some more in the waiting room, letting them in.
Take your phone. Yeah, back again.
All right, you good, David?
Yeah, we're good. Let's honor the people that showed up on time, and we'll get started.
Perfect. Okay. So I just wanted to start off with like saying thank you guys so much for coming. One investment property can definitely change your finances. Okay, that's immediately today and in the future. So I just wanted to start the webinar off by basically saying that all of my clients before you have all felt the same fear and uncertainty of not knowing where they would be going to be getting the income that they need in order to afford their lives. I've had so many conversations with clients where they're saying they are laying in bed at night stressing about, should we choose to buy groceries for the next couple weeks, or should we put our kids in extracurricular activities? Many families have also said that at one point or another, they were worried about paying bills, saving for retirement, and paying for their kids' education, all with working two incomes, right? We've all felt that same pressure and fear of feeling not good enough, or that we should be further along in life. And I am a mortgage agent. I help Canadian families create wealth and security so that they can breathe a little bit easier by eliminating shame and creating a stable future for themselves with freedom by purchasing an investment property. And that's what we're going to talk to you guys about tonight. It's how you guys are basically one property away from financial freedom. Okay, so I'm just going to share my screen here now. Let's see here. Share screen.
Just while Lara's doing that, I will make one more explanation as to Lara's showing up twice on the on the control. I joined in on Lara's Zoom account and haven't been able to get off to say it that I am not Lara.
No. That's right. So, two Laras don't make it right. All right, guys. So like I was saying, one investment property, it can really change your life immediately and for the future. So I just wanted to start off with asking, so why did you guys want to attend tonight? Are you maybe just curious about, let's see here, about investment properties? Are you worried about your own retirement? Are you feeling a little insecure every month about paying your bills? Maybe when you're, swiping that debit card, do you have that risk in the back of your head? Is that going to be denied? Are you worried about your kids? How are they going to pay for school? Or really, how are they going to get into the housing market? I mean, we all know what's going on with the housing market. Or do you just want to make some more money? So those are all good reasons. And maybe there's some other ones of why you've attended. I'd love to know what they are. Just throw them in the chat maybe. Put those in the chat about why you guys came tonight. So who we are and why are we doing this? Like I said, my name's Lara Rockefeller. I am a mortgage agent with Premier Mortgage Center. I help families navigate financing, and together we make strategies to free up room in their budgets. Okay.
And
David, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
yeah, David Buddy with Remax Series Shores. I've been a realtor now for a full-time realtor for 28 years. And my specialty basically is doing residential. I'm turning a little more into the investment side of things. But for fun, I play snooker, I play squash, I stay healthy. But 28 years of real estate is the experience that I can bring to this kind of sector as we look to being able to build wealth and property for you. So yeah, that's me.
Awesome. So I always like to talk about this first because you know what, it's the elephant in the room, money. So what does it cost to work with us? And I'm going to let you know that actually, normally it is free to work with a mortgage broker. And David, did you want to talk about a realtor?
Yeah, as a realtor, when you're purchasing a home, it doesn't really cost you anything to do that. You can work with a realtor that has been doing real estate for 6 months or someone that's been for 28 years. It costs the same, but it does not cost you any money. Those fees are paid by the seller.
Absolutely.
The other thing is that for our program, in terms of working with us as we guide you through the process of buying investment property, we're not charging anything for that. We get paid through the process of real estate or through the process of arranging mortgages.
Absolutely. And, you know, we always think that word of mouth and referrals are, you know, the best way. So yeah, that's why we're doing this tonight. That's a little bit of legal disclaimer. David and I are not, you know, financial advisors. We're not lawyers. This is just our opinion. It is not financial advice. Every investment that you do will involve some degree of risk. You'll have to do your own homework and understand what you are comfortable with, okay? But tonight, what we are going to cover, we are going to go over the basics. We're going to talk about some numbers. We're going to go over a couple case studies. We're going to talk about other investment strategies briefly and just do a little bit of comparing. We're going to talk about when is the best time to purchase and where, and then we'll talk about some pros and cons and maybe some myths and things maybe that you've heard about, like taxes and tenants, that kind of thing, okay? Perfect. So a couple numbers just to get off the bat. 20% of people in retirement are still paying a mortgage. That's a big chunk of the Canadian population. And 66% of all retirees are carrying some form of credit card debt on top of their mortgage. And I broke that down a bit further, and actually a lot of those are still paying a car payment too. So, I mean, I don't know about you, David, but like when I retire, I definitely don't want to be paying a mortgage.
I'm actually at a point where I am getting the the OAS and all of that now, and I know that if I was carrying credit card debt, car late payments and all of that, I really need to be making some serious money to be able to do that. And
absolutely.
if we hadn't taken care of some of our investment things along the way, we would certainly be in trouble. Right? Because OAS doesn't cover enough. Absolutely.
And then besides retirees, actually 3/4 of all Canadians have some type of debt, okay? And then when they interviewed those people, 1/3 of them believed that they had too much. Okay, they didn't like the number, they didn't like how their amount of payments that they had to make each month, and they weren't comfortable with that. So tonight,
one of the things on that as well is that a few years ago, let's say about 10 years ago, Canadians seemed to have their debt pretty much under control. In the last decade or so, Canadians have actually moved up the ladder in terms of per capita debt. And Canadians are in trouble right now, especially with COVID and people not working. that the debt load has become very, very heavy within the Canadian economy. It's an issue in terms of people's ability to buy and buy commodities even. So yeah.
So tonight, as we're going through our presentation, I really want yourself just to ask yourself an honest question, or maybe ask your partner if you're doing this with a partner tonight. Are you ready for the next stage of life? So whether that means retirement, or if your children are going away to school, or maybe you're, young children, just really ask yourself, are we doing the best we can with what we have right now? Is there any way that we can maximize our efforts? Okay, I want you to think about that as we're going through this.
And we also come from very different spots in this. Lara has a young family.
Absolutely.
Is just sort of at the early stages of things. My family basically is, they're in their late 20s, early 30s, and we don't have to worry about them anymore in terms of supporting them. So what we're trying to do is really secure our retirement. And so we can our viewpoints, our perspectives are very different in this, and we can cover a lot of people's questions with regards to that. Absolutely.
You know what, but I also think like the fear and insecurity of the future, that doesn't matter what age you are. So, okay, so some of the basics, so what we're going to talk about tonight. So just remember some of these. So, okay, equity. I'm sure you've heard that statement before. Basically, equity is just the difference between what your home is worth and what you owe on your mortgage. Your equity can go up in two ways. So as you pay down your mortgage, your equity increases, and as your home goes up in value, same with that. So example there, if your home's worth $250,000, you owe $150 on the mortgage, that means you have $100,000 in equity. Cash flow. When we're talking about an investment property, you normally want to have a cash flow positive. So what that means is once you've paid your rent, once you collect the rent and you take away all your expenses, property taxes, that kind of thing, what's left over is your cash flow. You either want to be at, like I said, as close to zero. You don't want to be negative. You want to be that a positive number.
But one of the things there, Lara, too, is that if you buy an investment property now and the cash flow is only $50 or $100 a month, that actually is not a bad place to start, because you're buying these investments for long term. And so that 5 years from now, the rents will be higher, your mortgage will be lower, your cash flow will be higher. So as long as you cash flow in the beginning, it's a very positive thing to consider.
Absolutely. In one sec here, I've got some people want to coming in, so letting them in, and then I'm going to go back on. All right, here we go. Perfect. Okay. Appreciation. So sure you've heard about that. That just basically means as your property goes up in value over time, you want it to appreciate. Return on investment, ROIs. That just measures basically how much money or profit you're making on investment. Normally it's a percentage, okay? Leverage, this is an important one. Remember this one. So this allows you to use borrowed money, like a mortgage, to purchase an investment property. That's what we're going to talk about tonight. And then what is your net worth? Basically, that's if you take all of your investments. So if you have any real estate, if you have any stocks, if you have any gold, take away any liabilities you have, credit card payments, debt, that kind of thing. What's left over is your net worth. Okay. All right, so let's get into some numbers now. So for this example, I'm going to say that we have purchased, picture my client, we'll just say my client Sarah has purchased a $500,000 property. She put down a 20% down payment, which was $100,000, leaving her a mortgage of $400,000. Now, over time, the property will appreciate. I'm saying for my example, I've used an example of 5%. I think that's a pretty fair number for where the market is right now. David, what are you thinking properties are appreciating at though right now?
Yeah. I've done some analyzing the markets. A friend of mine did something for the Toronto market as an example. And since 1980 to current time, so say about the last 40 years, the market has gone up an average of 7% per year. There have been years it's gone up 20, there have been years it hasn't moved up much at all. But if you use the rule of 72, which is that if you have an investment that moves up, the rule of 72 basically says that if you have, an investment that's increasing in 7%, in 10 years' time, approximately, your investment will double. If it was operating at 10%, it would double in about 7 years. So what we're seeing in the markets right now is that the rate of growth over the last 5 years has certainly exceeded 5% per year. But for the sake of what we're talking about here, it's safe to use 5. And I think, Larry, you've also done something at 3% just to show the difference. Is that
Yes,
right?
I have, yeah, just in
Okay.
case. Okay, so we'll just say, so Sarah brought her property for 500,000. It's going up 5% per year. So that means after 15 years, that property that she purchased for 500,000 is now worth just over $1 million. Her initial mortgage was $400,000. So after 15 years, what's left on the mortgage would be $267,000. So if we take that down payment out, which she put down $100,000, that means after 15 years, her profit is $671,000. Not bad for really not doing anything, just holding on to that property.
But when you look at that too, if you look at the initial purchase of the property at 500,000, your increase is actually based on your $100,000 down payment, which is cash you had to come up with or credit you had to come up with to pay for it. So to actually see a return of 671 on a $100,000 investment over 15 years is very strong.
Absolutely. So now, okay, so we'll just go over another example, just in case you think, okay, the market is not going to stay, 5% is too high. That's fair. Okay, we'll say 3%. What would the numbers be at 3? After 15 years at 3% appreciation, you're looking at $778,000. Same initial mortgage of $400,000. Same initial mortgage after 15. So after 15 years, you're still ahead $411,000 in profit. That's pure profit. Okay, I think that's pretty good numbers. So let's look at a couple case studies that we've studied here.
And let me.
So this is actually one of David, you do this one.
So this is a client. I've been doing real estate for 28 years. So this client goes back about 18 years with me, and they purchased a property in 2003 for $140,000. At this point in time, it is now currently renting for $2,400 a month. Our expenses, the expenses for the client are about $1,000 a month. So we're cash flowing in this example of $1,400 a month. When they moved this, when they decided not to sell this property, but buy another one, basically what happened is that $1,400 a month is now going to pay the mortgage on the new home. We're going towards, it's not covering everything, but it's going to pay for a good chunk of it. So what they did was they purchased a property, current value of $575, and the value of the property that they bought in 2003 is now $575. So at 5% appreciation, it's worth $1.195 million.
After 15 years.
After 15
That's
years.
their profit. Yeah, the profit from just the rent alone for 15 years is $252,000. So they've easily, if they want to buy another property, that's easily a down payment there. Okay. So if you took off the mortgage, they'd be $1.3 million in profit over 15 years.
Now, when
That's
I look
pretty
at
good.
those numbers, that may not be quite accurate because the market that was in may not have increased at 5% over the last 15 years on a consistent basis. Because that property that they own there might only be worth about $900,000. But even so, you're still netting over $1.1 million.
Absolutely. So now let's talk about leverage again. So we could turn one investment property into 3, and you can make over $2 million in 15 years. That is the power of leverage. So basically what you want to do is refinance your first and second investment properties after maybe 1 or 2 years to pull out some of the equity that's in that property and use it as a down payment for the next. If you do that 2 or 3 times, you're just going to keep, leveraging that initial $100,000 investment. That was your initial down payment, and turn it into over $2 million in 15 years. We could also even talk about how we can, yeah.
No, so what I'm going to say is
Go ahead, David.
the banks will finance, I believe, up to 80% of your total value. That is not necessarily everybody's comfort zone. A lot of people will only refinance up to about 50%. But in many cases, that still gives them enough of a down payment to be comfortably within a range of if there are problems with tenants paying rent or repairs that need to be done, where there's still be enough cash flow to be able to make all that happen. So the banks will go to 80%. We don't necessarily advise that they do that all the time.
And we can also talk about how we can try and keep your monthly payments the same by, if you have any other debt that we need to get rid of by rolling into the mortgage, car payments, boat payments, you know, unsecured debt, lines of credits, that kind of thing. We can probably keep your payments around the same, because right now we are at historically low interest rates. We have never seen interest rates this low. Our parents didn't, our grandparents didn't. It is, you know, a good time to take a look at your own mortgage and do a mortgage checkup that way. Let's see, next slide. Okay, so what are some other investment strategies? So, yep, go ahead, David.
I was just going to say the highest interest we've ever paid was 11.5%. And now that we're down,
yeah, I was going to say, do you remember what you're?
We're below 2%. It feels like free money. Right? This is a great.
Yeah, my mortgage rate is it's 1.55.
Okay. Yeah,
that's what.
That's crazy.
So other investment strategies. Okay, well, you think, well, maybe, you know, maybe let's just compare some other options. So RSPs, we're gonna break that down a little bit further here. But there's some stocks or bonds. You know, yeah, you can definitely make money that way. It's just, you know, it's a lower return on investment. Same with GICs or tax-free savings account. Definitely safe. Just takes a long time to see any return. The stock market, that's a hot topic right now. Everybody, I think all these casinos are closed and everybody's playing the stock market right now. And definitely, you know, you can make money for sure, but that is risky and you do need to, you know what you're doing and kind of study that. You could purchase a business. Anything you want to talk to about that, David, about how you can make money that way?
Well, the main thing is in purchasing a business, to use that as an example, is that basically what you're doing is you're buying yourself a job, right? In most cases, if you won't buy a storefront, like a store-based business or a manufacturing business or something like that, you need to be there for daily operation. What buying real estate allows you to do is allows you to have your money working for you while you still do the job that you did to make your money in the first place. So you're
Absolutely.
not giving up your career, at least not in the beginning. If you have 10 or 15 homes, maybe you can, but you're not giving up your bread and butter to generate money. You're giving up, what you're doing is leveraging the equity that you have built up. And that in itself is an easier way. You can sleep at night and make money. It's really quite nice. So I have enough jobs.
Absolutely. Let's go into the RSP idea, because I think a lot of people, you know, they think that's basically a good way. And I'm not saying it's not. It's good to have RSPs too. They play their purpose. But let's just take a look. So if we were going to do $400 a month in an RSP, which is probably similar to that mortgage payment we were talking about with, you know, Sarah's rental property of the $500,000 investment, maybe that would probably be around the same. So this person's putting $400 a month in RSP. And I calculated it with the same return on investment, that 5%. After 15 years, you're going to make about $118,000 with an RSP. You know, that's nothing to sneeze at. That's still a good, you know, chunk of change. I'll take it, definitely. But I would much rather have my 15 years, 5% return on investment with my $671,000 in my investment property. Maybe I'll just do both, actually. I'll take both.
Yeah.
Is that greedy? I don't know. But I don't know. When you're planning for your future, like, I don't think you can't be too greedy. Okay, so let's talk about where and when is the best time to purchase. And David, I'm going to let you talk about this.
Okay. Yeah. So where and when most people are comfortable buying investment properties that are fairly close to home. So that they can do drive-bys, they can see the condition of the property, if there's a problem that they can handle, they're close by. So where is geographically important as to where you might be living at the time. When is kind of interesting because we've bought investment properties over the years, my wife and I, that were $100,000. And then we sold them and made money and we reinvested that money. If the only thing that we might say at this point is that if we had known what we know today, we might never have sold any one of those properties because now we would be in a very different financial position as the markets have increased so much in value. So the when is an interesting thing. Whenever you buy a property in today's market, you're going to feel like you overpaid because typically you're buying in
Absolutely.
you're up against 10 other offers at the same time and you're going to go 5 or 10% above list, whatever it is necessary in the marketplace to buy that home. And you're just thinking, I'm going to overpay. We just purchased a home 6 months ago that has far exceeded what we would have anticipated the value of it going up. It looks now like we stole the property. Whereas at the time we bought, we felt like we were probably paying a little too much. So time is on your side on this, and that if you don't need to sell, if you're holding for 5, 10, 15 years, and you don't need to sell at any point in time, values will not go down. Historically, they just don't do that. There will be glitches, 2008, 2012, where
and because the market is going up so much, right?
Yes.
There's going to be more of that demand for rentals.
And there's a whole strategy if you're buying apartments or duplexes, triplexes about how many bedrooms you want. And we can talk about that at another time, where having a 1 or 2 bedroom apartment is maybe better than a 3 bedroom apartment because families rent 3 bedrooms and stay longer. 1 or 2 bedrooms are young couples that move on to other things and you can reset at market rate. Those kind of things come into what you buy. So when basically, if the market goes south, the demand for rentals goes up and you're in a pretty good position either way. So hope that helps.
Absolutely. And I just want to touch base about Ontario because Ontario is actually projected to increase by 31.5% or actually over 4.6 million people over the next 27 years. And just think about what happened last year. I mean, the borders are still closed. We're not allowing as many people to immigrate here as normally would. That's going to change. Those borders will reopen and all those people are going to need somewhere to live. And most people rent when you first immigrate here. They want to be around, like border towns because it's warmer, right? So Ontario, it's definitely people come here. We have a very low vacancy rate. In 2019, it was actually only 1.6%. And it even went down further last year in 2020. So Ontario is where it is. It's a great place to purchase. So
the numbers basically.
So who is this strategy for? Yeah, go ahead, David.
By the way, for those of you listening, Lara and I are in different homes at this moment in time.
Yeah.
So we can't see when one of us is taking a breath to stop. So if we
no, so I'm sorry, David.
So what the numbers I've heard in terms of immigration is that typically we bring in about 250,000 immigrants per year. During COVID, it's dropped down below 100. And when the borders open up again, whenever COVID is finished, is that we will probably be bringing in close to 500,000 people a year to catch up with the pent-up need. So what that means is people generally want to live within 100 miles of the US border because it's warmer in Canada in those areas. So Southern Ontario is a prime area for all of those. Toronto will get stressed. Mississauga, Milton, Markham, all those areas will get heavily stressed by the immigrants coming in. So the Brantford, Hamilton, Norfolk County markets will feel that trickle-down effect into pushing prices even higher. So, yeah.
Absolutely, they will. Okay, so this strategy is for basically any average Canadian who own their home for maybe longer than 2 years and you've built up some equity. Families with school-age children, families with teenagers. And we wanted to talk about this actually real quick. If you are a family with a teenager and you think that they are interested in, university or college, and they already have an idea of maybe where they want to go, one great strategy that you could utilize is actually purchasing the investment property in that university town. Even if they're not going to go to that school, I mean, by doing that ahead of time, if they do go, say, Guelph, for instance, if they do end up going to Guelph and you've purchased an investment property there, they have somewhere to live while they're in school. You're getting cash flow from the tenants. And even if they were to sell that property, you could pay for their education and then some more, definitely, with that investment property. Okay. I know quite a few families who've done that, actually. Who else is this good for? So adults. Yeah.
One of the things there as well is that then when the time comes that your kids are finished university, you can always put that house up on the market for sale. And over 4 years, if it's close enough to the university, it will have gone up significantly in value. The monthly rents will have gone up significantly in value over that period of time. You could sell that home, recover your initial investment so it hasn't cost you anything, and then take the equity, the increase in value that has gone up, and give that to your kids as no cost to you. Give that to your children to be able to start coming up with a down payment for their own first home. And
absolutely,
it's a wonderful way to do that without having to go into your own RSPs, your own equity, or anything like that, to be able to help your kids out coming up on the other side of university.
Who doesn't want to give their kids a head start?
It also teaches them great responsibility in terms of managing the property, how to run a house. Yeah.
Very true. If you're currently paying down your own mortgage, if you are employed and you just want to add to your income, those are all who this strategy would be for. And who it's not for is you do need to have a little bit of employment. If you currently don't own a house, we can have a different conversation for sure about getting you into the housing market. But this strategy is normally if you've already owned your principal residence. If you live with your parents and you are, we can definitely talk about getting you purchasing a duplex for your first house is an amazing idea. So we can talk about that. That's just a different conversation. That's all. This is not a get rich quick scheme. Okay. This is not overnight. We're not talking about flipping houses. This is not going to happen quickly. It does take a few years. Like I said, we were showing you a 15-year snapshot there. So this is not for anyone that's looking to get rich quick. And we're not really talking about having a whole ton of student rentals here either. I mean, yes, you could have the one investment property, but we're not really talking about like a big dorm house or apartments, okay? Those are all different conversations that we could definitely have with you. Just book a call for that. And then lastly, it's not for really anyone who's going to be laying in bed at night stressing about, if they made a bad decision, if they're not. Every investment, like we said, has a little bit of risk, okay? But we are here to try and answer some of those fears for you. And that's going to bring us into our next conversation, which is, the pros and the cons. David, I'll let you go. You do this one.
So the pros, it gives you financial stability in terms of your, if you get properties of positive cash flow, it gives you monthly coverage for additional bills, long-term financial growth. These, again, as stressed, this is not a short-term policy. This is a 5, 10-year, 15-year policy. And your money's working for you. You could be off work for 6 months, and this kind of investment is still going to be giving you money. You could go on a 2-month holiday, and it will still pay you money. So we've talked about possibly free housing, university, the teaching them responsibility, and that so that when they get into their own home, they understand that there are utility costs. They understand that you can't have parties in homes and not damage them because they've learned that by managing their own properties. So those kind of things. Basically long-term financial stability is what we're after here. And then the cons. The biggest fear that people have on the cons is tenant damage, which increases your financial risk if they're damaging property, your risk tolerance level. What if the market turns down? The big thing if the market turns down basically is that if you don't need to sell in a downturn market, you do not need to worry. Because what will happen is the market turns down for anywhere from maybe 6 months to a year. And when it comes back with a vengeance. And it catches up fairly quickly. 2008, 2012 were great examples of that. Even when it really crashed in the United States and values went down about 50%, for the people that were in cash positions to buy property then, they made a very large amount of money when the market turned back up, and it's gone way beyond. So you're buying property at 50 cents on the dollar, and now that has gone back up to about 150% of what the value was at that time. So as long as you don't have to sell in the down market, you're good. Tenant issues, I can give you a quick rundown. I don't know, Lara, if that's a different slide coming up.
No, it's not, so you go ahead.
Okay, all right. So owning a property that we had paid $250,000 for, we rented it out. We lived in it for 7 years, rented it out for 4. In the 4 years that it got rented out, we had fairly good tenants. Overall, the rent was paid, but not always. We had some issues with that. But before we sold it, we had one tenant that gave us notice, proper notice, and we were doing an inspection 3 days before they moved out. And what happened there was the house was in good shape. We knew the carpets needed cleaning, it needed to be repainted, gardens had to be done. So we saw that on the walkthrough. After they moved out, we went back in and they had a party the night before they moved out. And there were a significant number of holes punched in the walls. So I allowed myself about 10 minutes to be mad. And then I basically ran the numbers. And what that property had made for us over the 4 years that we had rented it out, it had increased in value by about $2,000 a month. We had collected $1,500 a month on average over that period of time. And so over that period of time, we brought in $72,000 in rent. It had gone up $2,000 a month in value. And when we ended up doing the math, and I don't have the numbers right in front of me, but we had netted about $160,000 in value over 4 years. And it cost me to repaint, clean the carpets, fix the holes. I had a contractor, because I'm not that guy who does that work. Had a contractor come in, cost us about $5,000. So we had brought in $168,000 in value, lost about $5,000. And when I sat down and did the math, it was like, that's okay. I can live with that. We may have just lost Lara. She lives in the country and has internet that doesn't necessarily work all that well. She will come back on in a minute, I'm sure. But so the fear of tenants is something that it's a real concern. You don't want to be callous about it. You don't want to have to not be worried or not be thoughtful about the tenants you bring in. But in working with Lara and I, we can credit check. We can do a full credit check. We can do employment history. We can check all the references. We can do the best job that's possible in terms of trying to verify that those tenants will be good tenants long-term. I've had a few tenants on rental properties that we've owned where at the end, we did all the credit checks and all the employment checks, and he got laid off 3 months later, and we had to reduce the rent because they could no longer pay the rent that we had initially set up. So you don't always win. But when you look at the mortgage being paid down, the increase in value in the property long-term, and that, yes, you may have to deal, Lara's apparently back now, she's coming back as host. You may have to deal with some issues, but they're not life-ending. They're a bump in the road.
Thanks, everybody.
Welcome back, Lara.
I got kicked out, I'm sorry.
That's okay. We kept it going while you were gone.
Goodness.
So that's the joy of living out in a rural area.
Yes, it is. I'm so sorry.
Tenants can be an issue, but they are not the end of the world. And if you mitigate the risk as best you can, 5 or 10 years time, the 1 or 2 tenants that you might have had during a period of time that were rough, they're not the end of the world for you. So we've been doing it a number of years and have done very well long-term investments over that. So
Did you talk about taxes?
haven't talked about taxes yet.
Okay. I did, but no one heard it. What I said was taxes, yes. So your income is going to go up a little bit. Well, obviously a lot, actually. So there will be taxes. But remember that this is an investment property is going to be a write-off. So any interest that you have paid, that's a write-off on your taxes. Same with like the insurance. And then people talk about capital gains quite often when it comes to taxes. You only pay capital gains when you sell. So if you keep those properties and just let your estate handle anything, then you don't have to worry about that. Right, David? Anything you want to add about capital gains?
Your capital gains basically only come into play if you've made money. And when, again, you think that
Right.
the time of ownership, the increase in value in the home, your mortgage being paid down by somebody else, yes, at the end of the day, when you sell, you'll have to pay some taxes. There's no way around that legally. And obviously we don't suggest bypassing that. If you notice on your income tax lately, especially in the last, I think, 2 years, there's a question about have you sold any real estate? That wasn't a question that was there before that. If it is your personal residence, no capital gains tax is payable. If it is an investment property, be prepared to pay the capital gains.
Absolutely. Any myths you want to talk about, David, too?
Do you have that slide?
Real estate myths.
My printout went screwy on me. Okay, so real estate myths. Larry, did you put them on the slides?
No, I think we were just going to talk about it here.
Okay. So one, let's talk about, I'll come off memory here. One of the big myths that most people are afraid of is that you really have to be wealthy to make this happen. And,
Oh, no, I did put it on there. Keep going.
Oh, except the, okay, okay, so you have to be rich to own investment property. It is not true. What works nowadays better than anything is that you may have been in your home for 5 or 10 or 15 years or longer. There are people that own their homes outright that may have $500 to $1 million sitting in equity in their home, increasing at 5% per year in the value of the home. But they have the ability, if their risk tolerance is high enough, that they can make considerably more of an investment in the market. I don't know enough to make it work. With a little guidance, you can make it happen. It's only as complicated as you make it. The other thing too there is that when you're talking to people about investing in property, and I noticed in one of the chats, someone mentioned that, they have a friend that's been asking them to really look at investment properties and they haven't done it yet, and they're now in a position of equity. Listen to the people who are in the game. Don't listen to the people in the stands. The people in the stands watching are going to tell you there's too many tenant problems. You'll never make money. People will never pay their rent. The homes are going to be damaged. But they're not the ones that are typically in the game. The people that you want to talk to and listen to are the people that you know or that we can introduce you to, who say basically, you know what, we've done this for 10 years. We have the ability now to make other choices financially in our lives that we wouldn't have had made available to us if we hadn't made the choices that we made 10 years ago. And at the end of the day, you either want to be in a situation, I think you want to be in a situation where you're glad that you made the choice to do something, to step out a little bit of your comfort zone, as opposed to, I wish I had. So again, back to some of the other false things, all the good investments are gone already. Not true. Yes, if you had done it 10 years ago, you could have bought them for 50 cents on the dollar or 75 cents on the dollar. But you can buy them today and still benefit 10 years down the road. My pension is enough to retire on. I hope it is, but there's a thing in living in that you either have survival or abundance. And if you're living at a level of survival and costs go up, your level of survival goes less and less. It's a mindset thing. If you have the ability to build something better today, that 5 years down the road, you can have some kind of abundance or a higher level of survival, of a nice, comfortable life, then you have the ability to do that. And why not take that, right? Tenants are a nightmare. We've kind of addressed that.
Yeah, we went over that one.
10% of tenants might be nightmares, but they're relatively easy to, I look at them as bumps in the roads. Yeah.
Absolutely. All right, we're almost done here, guys. So, but basically we wanted to just say that, yes, you could take all this information that we've given you tonight, and I'm sure it was a lot, and I'm sure you have questions, and you could go out and Google it and, you know, do it all on your own. Absolutely. Like we said, we wanted to inform people tonight. That's why we were hosting this webinar. But we think that our experience is a little bit better than Google. Okay, we've been through this. We know all the required steps. We've done the work for you, and we want to show you and just basically hold your hand and walk you through this. So when you work with David and I, we're going to guide you through, and we've made this package for you. And part of our package includes, remember, we don't have any fees, right? We don't cost anything.
Yep.
So we have property management companies that we work with. We work with lawyers. We work with home inspectors. We work with accountants, appraisers, contractors, insurance brokers. I know a couple of realtors. So do you, David. And I know some other mortgage agents too, besides myself. This is what we do every day. We live and breathe and sleep real estate and mortgages, basically, right? So like I said, we've done that work for you. We want to just basically help you get to success, right? So what are the next steps then for that? So what our next steps is we want to basically just book a consultation call with us. I've put the link in the chat about how you can speak with us. And we just wanted to say, remember, there is a guaranteed rate of investment, return on investment, right? Because your tenant is paying that mortgage. Okay. All right. Okay. So anything you want to say, David, before we open it up to questions and answers?
First of all, just thank you. I know there's been a number of people through, and it looks like numbers went up and dropped a bit. So but for all of you that are that have come on to the webinar, absolutely thank you for coming aboard. It's our first run at this, so any comments, hopefully constructive, but not necessarily all positive if needed, would be greatly appreciated. Our plan is to do this once a month on, I think, the third Tuesday of every month is what we're targeting, Lara?
Yeah.
So to come back, we'll have new information. We might be reviewing some of the information that we've gone over already. If you have friends that are, because you've seen this and you're talking with them about it, and they say, oh, I'd love to get that information, please have them come on to the next one. Lara, I tried to set this up today as a YouTube channel for home equity investing, and I'm not a technical guy on the internet. I need help with that stuff. But we will set up a YouTube channel where we'll divide these webinars up into sections as to who, what, where, when, and why, those kind of things. So all of that will be available. But absolutely, please let us know what you think. If you have questions and are considering moving along with some of the things that we've talked about, we'd love to help you do it, answer your questions that you have. That's what I put the booking link in the chat so you guys can get on there. And if you don't see a time that works for you, then just let us know and we'll make arrangements. So, okay, any questions right now? You guys are all muted probably, so you have to unmute yourselves. we could now, if you set it up where they can unmute. I can unmute you. Or hold on, let me see. I will unmute. I think you guys can do it yourselves, but if you can, hold on, let's see. Does everybody know how to unmute themselves? Oh, Kelly, she came on. There we go. Hi.
So my daughter's going to school, Nate, in Edmonton, Alberta, probably not till September 2022.
Okay.
So are you able to assist me to buy a condo there or something for her to live in, probably with a roommate?
Absolutely.
Alberta?
Yep. I work on all of Canada, so.
Yeah, through Lara's contacts, and again, Lara, you may be able to work in all of Canada with your licensing. As a realtor, I'm licensed to work in Ontario, but for the last 22 years, I've been part of a real estate referral network. And I have connections out in Alberta where we would refer you to someone who comes from the same mindset of service first and building the trust, building the relationship. So what would happen is we'd refer you to a realtor out in Alberta, whatever community that your daughter is going to be moving to. You would get set up on a notification system of listings in the marketplace where she will be looking. And then you'll start getting educated in the market as far in advance as you want.
Okay.
So you'll see pricing, you'll see what things have been listed for and what things have sold for, how quickly the prices are increasing in that particular market. And then when you're ready to go, Kelly, you could just pull the trigger whenever you're ready.
Okay.
And one neat thing is people are buying a lot with seeing through Zoom. Like it's crazy. Like people are going and doing like virtual, walkthroughs and stuff. My brokerage works in all of Canada, so even if I can't work in that province, I would just partner the deal with another broker. So that's part of our brokerage. So yeah, same kind of thing.
Yeah.
Awesome. We can, if you want, Kelly, we can set up a time off this one and we can talk more about that for sure. Okay. Anybody else have any questions?
Sarah, I just put in the chat that she needed a help with a realtor as well, seeing as I'm born and raised Edmonton.
Oh, perfect, Christine. There we go.
And, I personally know a few that, on there. So, I'll obviously personally recommend.
Awesome. Perfect. Thank you.
Lara can do the mortgage part.
So anyone else with a specific question, or we can go through there are a couple of questions here in the chat.
Okay.
Are you finding the big six have raised the prerequisites for borrowing overall? That probably would be a great question for you, Lara.
Yeah, they are definitely. Yeah, it's definitely, but that's why we're keeping up on all our training, and every day we're doing, education things and learning more about what hoops each lender wants us to jump through. As part of my brokerage, I work for Premier Mortgage Center. We're a part of one of Canada's biggest brokerages. So we fund more mortgages every year than the Canadian banks. Last year, as a whole, it was over $50 billion in mortgages. So because of that, we work very closely with the lenders, and we have a very good relationship with them. And they pass on savings to us and to our clients because they know that we're going to find them amazing clients and bring them to them. So yeah, we're always studying what their regulations are and go from there.
Yeah. There's another question here about projections about interest rate increases.
I can't see any of these questions. I wonder if it's because I got kicked out.
Can you go to
so?
Chat? What if you
I'm on the chat. I don't see them, but that's okay. That's fine.
I'll run
Interest rates, yes. So right now, if you're in a variable rate, things are not changing. Variable rates are set by the Bank of Canada. Okay, so they've gave their announcement. Actually, we just had an announcement, and they are not changing anything. Last year, they did change their interest rate, and they went down a little bit. So that was good news for anyone in the variable. But fixed are set by different, and each lender has to decide for themselves what they are comfortable with and where they want to be. So right now, yep, fixed are starting to go up a little bit. It's not by much. We call it I think it's like 5 or 10 basis points really. So you can still get really amazing low rates, still some under 2%. It all really depends on the property and your credit and your payment histories. So each, and sometimes with investment properties, you do pay a little bit of a higher rate. But you have to remember that interest is a write-off, right? So that's a tax write-off as well. So it doesn't really matter sometimes how much interest you're paying if you're getting it all back in taxes anyway, right? I'm seeing something about, is the rate of an ROI higher on a vacation property than on a normal home rental? That's a good question. What do you think about that, David? Do you think it would be compared to?
Well, it's not so much as the rate, that's on cottage property, recreational properties. Is that the question?
On a vacation property than on a normal home rental.
Okay, so not so much. What you may need for a recreation property, cottage property, is you may need a bigger down payment. The banks are not quite as happy to give 5 or 10% down payment on recreational properties. They may be looking for as much as 25. Is what we've seen when I've been working recreational properties down along Lake Erie in the Port Dover, Long Point area. Is that quite often they're looking for more of a down payment.
Yeah, you will need to put 20% down.
Okay.
Minimum.
The other thing with regards to interest rates as well is that my belief is that the government cannot push interest rates very hard right now, because if they tighten up the housing market, they tighten up car ownership, car loans, those kind of things by pushing the rates up, the economy will stagnate. With COVID influences right now, they cannot endanger the economy by stagnating it at this moment. There's too many jobs that would come into risk. There's too many people that would start losing homes because they're so tight on their mortgage rates if they have to refinance. If it went up 2%, again, Larry, you might have a number on this for that. If the mortgage rate went up 2%, how many people would be at risk on their mortgages now?
Yeah.
It would be huge.
So when we qualify people, we actually have to qualify for any mortgage that we do at 4.79%. So when we're running our numbers, we have to make sure that you are still comfortable and they would be able to afford those payments with all your other outside payments that you have. So that's part of what you hear about the stress test. That's actually a higher qualifying rate. Yeah. There's a question here from Greg about the difference between a Heloc and remortgaging. So a Heloc is a home equity line of credit. That is like a second loan that you're taking out against your house. Your house is your collateral. Normally it's at a higher interest rate. When you're remortgaging, you're basically getting rid of your whole existing mortgage and any other debt that you have and renegotiating and getting a better interest rate and normally a smaller payment, and you're normally taking out the equity. So you would be getting all of that as a cash. I prefer, or I try to steer my clients into doing that, because when you have a home equity line of credit, you're normally only making interest only payments. You're never putting down, minimizing the principal. Now, most people say, well, I'll just make extra payments. But how many people actually do that? How many people actually go and say, I'm going to up my payment and, start cutting down the principal? Whereas when you do a refinance and you've taken out that equity and you've got that cash to do your renovation or to use it to down payment or whatever you need the equity for, every time you make a mortgage payment, it's principal and interest. So it's going down, right? You're just building the equity back up again. So that's why I always like to say that I recommend for my clients to do a refinance instead of doing a Heloc or a line of credit.
The one thing to keep in mind there, though, is that if you do the refinance by canceling out your old mortgage and putting a new one, generally there is the interest penalty, right? The
yes.
interest penalty. So you have to balance out the benefit of the lower rate, the increased amount that you want to get on your mortgage against the cost of a 3-month or whatever the penalty might be.
Absolutely.
For canceling your mortgage and restarting a new one. So
and normally what I do,
happen there.
Absolutely. And normally what I do for my clients is a budget, and I break it down and I show them, okay, so this is what it's going to cost to do it this way, and this is what it's going to cost to do it that way. And that's also another benefit of going into a variable rate mortgage, besides it being a lower rate right now, is they're legally only allowed to charge you 3 months simple interest if you break that mortgage. 4 out of 5 Canadians break their mortgage before the term is up. And that's why lenders like to push the fixed rate, because they know that, and they know that they're going to be able to charge you sometimes a higher penalty. Is it better to act now or in August, Greg? Well, you and I could have a conversation about that and figure out what like your penalty is and figure out, is it better to act now, and go from there. If you want to see if, maybe in the booking link, if you can book a call, if you don't see a spot that works for you, let me know, and we'll figure out a time. Okay.
The other question about whether it's August or now, depending once the financial side of it is done, is that depending which market you're in, and pretty much Southern Ontario as an example, every market is increasing almost exponentially right now. So if you are in a position to buy an investment property, I would think of it in terms of doing it relatively soon, because I do not see the rate of increase slowing down. There is such a shortage of inventory right now that we're seeing in the Brantford area right now. We've seen as many as 36 offers on a single listing.
Yeah,
And when
if you're
get
gonna,
into that,
yeah,
you're
start
paying
looking.
a lot of money above list price to win in 36 offers. I won't go into it right now, but I've done an analysis of the Brantford market versus the Norfolk County market. And right now, prices are lower in Norfolk County. We're not getting as many competing offers. They're much more reasonable. But the Brantford market is probably going to be increasing faster. So there's a trade-off as to
Right.
which one is better to buy in. If you can buy affordably in a faster moving market, maybe that's the way to go. But again, that's in a consultation and figuring out what your goals are. That's actually something we haven't stressed at all in this or talked about at all, is to really sit down and come up with what might be your ultimate scenario. That what's your picture 3 years down the road? What's your picture 5 years down the road? Or 10 years down the road? Where do you want to get to? And what Lara and I can do, if we know what that picture is for you, we can devise a program, a step-by-step program that will actually get you there.
That's one of my number one questions I ask all of my new clients is, what's your 5-year plan? What's your 10-year plan? Where do you want to be? I need to know these things because, yeah, it changes what the steps are that I'm going to lay out for you, right?
Right.
Absolutely. And I need to know those kind of things. So I sometimes think of my job as a detective.
Right. It's not just about buying a house and having it work for you. Because if it's the wrong house in the wrong location, you're going to want to sell it a year or two later because it wasn't the right property for you. But
Right.
if we really focus in on what it is you need and whether you want a duplex or a triplex and the reasons for that, or how many bedrooms you want in an investment property, those are the things that will determine what is best for you. And the reality is, Lara and I don't care as long as we're doing what's best for you.
Absolutely.
I don't really care whether you buy a 10-plex or a duplex, as long as it forwards what it is that you're looking for in your life.
Our goal is happy clients. That's it. Happy clients. That's our only goal.
Happy clients refer other people in their
Absolutely.
life because they were listened to.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. All right. Now, are you seeing any other question? I think when I got kicked out, I think all the chat got deleted on my end. So.
Up in August. Okay, that one we handled.
Mhm.
ROI is an ROI higher on a vacation property than a normal home rental.
That's the one I told you about.
Okay, that also may go to whether you're renting it out weekly through the summer, right? If you're renting it out weekly in the summer and you're getting $3,000, like in Muskoka right now, they're about $3,500 or $4,000 a week. If you can do that for 10 weeks and then rent it out year round, like the other 8 months or whatever after, but that takes a lot more work than most people are wanting to do. So there's a few things there that would be a conversation to have with you to determine what might be the best answer for you there. I think that's largely the questions.
Yeah, I think so.
And
Anything else for now, guys?
We're right about that hour that we were aiming for.
Perfect. We're right on time.
Right on time.
Awesome.
We started about 8:05 and we thought 45 minutes and then 15 minutes for questions. So we've come in pretty close to what we were thinking of. Please do not hesitate. Oh, sorry. Is there someone else?
Was someone passing something?
Okay. And thank you for that. Please do not hesitate to contact either one of us.
No, you can.
Any questions, anything, you wake up in the morning, you go, I should have asked this question.
Absolutely.
Don't hesitate, right? There's no question in this that is a silly question. There's no stupid
Mm-mm.
questions.
Nope.
Lara and I do this every day. We might have brushed over something more quickly than maybe you would have liked, or that, you know, when you wake up in the morning and go, there's one thing I wasn't sure about in what they said. Call us right away.
I say that to all my clients on my initial call. There's no silly question.
Yeah.
I mean, no one wakes up knowing about mortgages or about real estate. Like, no, like we have to learn these things. I studied, right? So no, there's no silly question at all. You guys can find us on LinkedIn, on Instagram, on Facebook, our emails. I think you got, oh, we're connected.
Yeah. The one thing that I love about questions too is I love getting questions that I've never been asked before.
Mhm.
If you guys stump me with a question that I don't have an answer for, I love it. Because I'll go find the answer right away. I'll tell you I don't know, but then I'll go find the answer for you, and now it's something else that I have in my reserves. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I work with my team at my brokerage all the time for stuff like that. Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. I guess, should we put, I guess I could put like our contact info in the chat too, but yeah, basically just hop on that booking link. That's the easiest way. So, but myself and David's cell, and then I think that's it, guys.
Thanks for coming, Kelly.
Yeah.
And it's a great thank you to all you guys who took a chance on a first-time webinar. And yeah, it's been great doing it. We've learned a lot in putting it together.
Absolutely.
Technically, we'll be better next time probably. And I've been trying to run it on Facebook Live at the same time, but they haven't been able to see the slides. So
Okay.
we'll try and figure out technically how to do that. Facebook Live on slides as well. And
Perfect.
maybe we can run two computers, one on Facebook Live and one on this.
Okay.
Again, heartfelt thank you. It's been
Thank
great.
you, guys. Enjoy the rest of your night, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Thanks, guys.